Hey, Carl Gasso here. Welcome to Gasso Gathers, the new title for the channel, and welcome to video 5. This is the 5th video on this 5th day of the 5th month of the 25th year of the century, and what better way than to delve into this hobby box from 1995. The last two videos, we went into the 1996 box, and as we established, what I learned from this whole thing is that when it comes to these hobby boxes, we're going to have to make them a two-parter. I don't want to, like I keep saying, I don't want these videos to go longer than like around 15-20 minutes or so. That first video, it ran for almost an hour until the battery ran out. So I got very lucky in that, how it ran out. It wasn't too sudden, and it gave me the idea to make these a two-parter. So we're just gonna delve right into here. The one 5 that you're not gonna see right now is 7, and why this is here is this 7 came out in 1995. It's one of my and it's one of my favorite movies. In the 1996 video, I talked about how that year was a big year for me. As a kid, I was 10 years old. But, a lot of the content that I experienced in 96, really came out in 95. Surely I didn't see 7 in the theater, 9 years old. Not that seeing it at 10 years old was necessarily anything that much better, but, I think I've established through these videos that, I was a little bit of an odd kid. I was into Marilyn Manson and Tool and, Typo Negative. And this is double packed, but you see it is factory seal. And yeah, a lot of that content actually came out in 95, and there's a lot of great movies that came out in 95. Another great crime movie, Heat. I mean, just a lot of bangers in 95. A lot of great music came out. Collective Soul put out some stuff. Oh, Jesus, this is triple. Okay. I need a whole video just taking the box itself out of the wrapping. Okay, now we got to the actual factory seal. I assure you this box was not $11.99 when I bought it, but that's okay. Hopefully we have some good stuff in here. We'll get back to reminiscing in just a minute. Let me just make sure Oh my, no. Surely there can't be another. There's another seal. That's 4. That's 4 plastic wraps. This box is very, very well maintained. All right. We have finally got to the box itself. Wow. I knew that there was an extra wrapping on it. I didn't expect 3 extra wrappings. Okay, that's great. It's a funny surprise. But all right, here it is in all its glory. Now, right off the bat, so perfectly, a lot of this about this channel is going to be about nostalgia, and it's about reminiscing. And right off the bat, this is just so beautifully 90s. We have these cards. Some of these are every card foil stamped with Spectralite, an insert with complete 94 cyber stats. And why is that such a big deal? Well, 95 was right when the internet was really starting to become a thing. That it was becoming much more mainstream. That same year, obviously, Microsoft Windows 95 came out. So this was like 95 was like the year where people, where the computer like social, not social networking, but computer stuff for everyday people started becoming a thing, and more people were connected. So yeah, and to use the term like, cyberstats, cyberspace, that was all very trending and relevant at the time, because it was novel. It was the new thing. All right, beautiful. So, like I said, we're going to do half the box in this video, and we're going to do a part 2 where we're going to do the other half. So I guess we'll just do this bottom half, and we're going to get right into this. Before I cut myself with my X-Acto knife, I'm going to put that away. That might make a good video, but... So what else happened in '95? We had the O.J. Simpson trial. That's fun. We had the Oklahoma City bombing. A lot of fun stuff. I'll be talking about stuff like that in another video. You know, these baseball cards, they're a little bit of they're not. I wouldn't call them a stepping stone. I want to continue with it. That's nice. But ooh, here we go. That's I think this is like a first I've seen so far in oh boy, be gentle. But this is very nice. Immediately put that to the side. But so for those who have not seen the previous videos, you know, I'm new to both YouTube and baseball cards, and so I'm using these baseball cards as a little way to familiarize myself. I'm taking the opportunity to do both at the same time, kill two birds with one stone. And as I get to be more comfortable making these YouTube videos, I'll start adding to the channel stuff, the collections, and of the things that I actually am more knowledgeable with. And that includes action figures, some comic stuff, but also specifically history books. And history books, history media. The one theme of everything is arguably history. The first 2 boxes that I did was the 2 heritage boxes, which is a example of the retro content that's available. And since then, I've moved on to these. Oh, okay, this is an example of the cyber stats. Yeah, they said the foil cards, they have the cyber stats, so that's what that's about. That's pretty cool. I love it. And so, yeah, oof, that's really stuck together. Okay. Not a little bit aware, but so yeah, once I feel like I'm comfortable, which actually the video I will do after this box, I was thinking about starting talking about some other things, branching out. Ooh, very nice. That's a hell of a... I'm a Mets fan, so that's where I take pause with that. But Paul Wilson, this is a interesting, very interesting jersey. I'm not. I guess that's. I assume that's just one of their like practice type jerseys that they used to wear. That's pretty neat. Draft pick. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna expand this channel eventually. We're gonna start talking about all sorts of things. But yeah, the retro, vintage, history. This is the main theme of what I'd like to do with the channel. And as I start getting into reviewing my book collection, you're gonna find that the majority of those books are history, or they have something to do with history. Even if they're fiction, they're still gonna be historically based. Look at that smile. That's a great smile. Happy guy. Kirby Puckett. All right. I have a big announcement. I'm very proud to say that I've actually officially sold my first card. Another thing that I've said before is, you know, like this is not as of right now. This is not profit. You know, this is purely just for getting into the hobby. Like I said, I'm using these as a kind of a medium to reminisce about the past. But you know, obviously, I do want to know what I have, and you know, if there's something that if there's something that is worth something, and I'm not entirely attached to it for whatever reason, then why not? Why not start putting stuff up and seeing what happens? And so far, yeah, I sold. There we go. I like these so far. These they have like a nice variety of different types of cards. Um, so yeah, you know, I sold my first card. Uh, Not bad. Ah, um, it would be you know, I definitely have some other stuff out there. Nothing else is sold yet, but you know, it'd be funny. You know, it took me one pack. It took me opening one pack of cards to spark the interest in wanting to do it more. And it would be funny if that's what happened with selling one card. Now all of a sudden, now I'm just purely about profit. I'm just like, what can I get for this? You know, is this worth anything? Is this worth anything? Tell me. If I don't break even, then this is for naught. No. You know, I'm having a lot of fun getting into this. I've been subscribing a lot to different card hobbyists. It's been really interesting seeing how like people do how everyone else does their videos and oops, sorry, and getting different people's perspective on everything. So this is becoming like a full-fledged thing. I've really definitely gone into this, and it's just one of the things you might ask. You know, if you see the first video, I clearly state that I'm like 38 years old. So and you might ask, like, you know, well, why is this, you know, adult man getting into this type of card, into a hobby that usually starts with childhood? But as you know, I talk about that in other videos. I highly suggest you check them out. Um, I didn't I didn't grow up being a huge sports person. It's sports is something that I really slowly grew into appreciating, you know, in my way. And but yeah, pick. All right. I also have mentioned how this is not meant to be an ASMR channel per se, but I do take inspiration from those type of channels too. I do like the idea of, you know, there's all sorts of crinkles going on, right? I think the just hearing the cards itself is satisfying, so I'm not gonna I don't feel like the need to always talk nonstop. This isn't, you know, I think just letting the cards speak for themselves is also a nice way to go about things. I wanted to talk about the movies that came out too in '95, because like so many great movies came out in '95. It's actually crazy when I looked it up. So I talked about Seven, and I talked about Heat. And I mean, if you take away anything from this video in terms of talking about movies, it would be Seven and Heat. Those are probably a couple of the greatest crime thrillers in this part of the century, right? Like, I mean, you have the serial killer angle, you have the cops and robbers angle. Just fantastic, fantastic movies. Um, ooh, Cade, Cade Gaspar. I like that. It's nice. Um, but also I was really surprised that Outbreak came out in '95. Which now talk about seeing things in the theater. I got an Outbreak story for you. I was so obviously I'm like 9 years old, and I've like I said, I was into like horror, and I was listening to Marilyn Manson, so like I wasn't a squeamish kid, but something about Outbreak really got to me, and I remember like my I was into the movie just because my mother actually read the book that inspired it, which was called The Hot Zone, and the whole and the whole like viral thing. It's I don't know, it was interesting to me as a kid. So when I saw that they were making a movie, I thought it was cool because I was a little young to read a whole novel. Um, I mean, I still haven't read that novel, but especially at the time, it was a little much for me. But so yeah, we went and saw the movie, and I've seen other movies like mature movies like that. I was a mature kid. I was an old soul. I'm an old soul. But I was in the theater for that, and uh, of all things in that movie, and there's some pretty graphic things going on in that movie, but of all things, it was a board meeting, which like really freaked me out, and I'll tell you why. There's a part in the movie, I think about halfway through, where they're having this. It's like a board meeting, but they're talking about how bad the viral infection can get if they don't do anything about it like immediately. And 1995 prospects. That's cool. It'd be interesting to look up these guys and see what become of them. Um, which it's funny. I probably just glazed over their names, and people are like, they don't know. He doesn't know that. That guy's like the greatest player ever. Well, you don't know Rob Welch? No. I hope he's not like a superstar, and I just look like an idiot right now. But is that worth anything? I don't know. And there we go, another one of those. And so in this board meeting, they actually have a sorry, I keep Bobby Vanilla. Let's go. That's very nice. Cyber stats. Here we go. Enter the matrix. And so they're talking about how bad the virus, the outbreak can get if they don't do anything. And they show like a yeah, I don't know, like whatever the PowerPoint presentation of their time. This is so stuck together. And they show a map of the United States, and they show it getting more and more red, tracking like what the virus, like the how the virus will go, until it shows like the entire country's red, and something about that just really freaked me out as a kid. Like that really triggered my like existential crisis, like awareness in my child mind, and I actually started crying in the theater just from the board meeting. Mind you, again, in the very beginning scene, you see like a kid crying over his parents who are all dead and bloated and bleeding out, and that was fine for me as a 9-year-old. But it was when they show the guys in the board meeting with a map, that's what like broke me. But I remember I kept it cool. I just it's amazing how you distinctly remember things. I kept it cool though. Like I don't even know if my parents knew I was upset. Like I just actually just kept it to myself in the dark theater by myself, just sobbing. So yeah, that's what that's all about. This is what this is all about now. This is what we're reminiscing about. Childhood trauma. Of like the dopiest kind. Like what are the movies we got? Congo. Copycat. That's a funny one that came out in '95 because I always Copycat. Ironically, is kind of like a copycat of Seven. It was another kind of thriller movie about. Ooh, that's awesome. That's on the cover too here. That's a really, really neat card. Love it. Roberto Alomar. Um, that was yeah, kind of like a derivative of Seven, but both movies came out at the same time. So you know, is it like a Armageddon Deep Impact type situation where just different studios had the idea or found one is doing the whole serial killer thriller thing, so they all wanted to jump on it. City of Lost Children, very artsy. Johnny Mnemonic, precursor to the Matrix, right there. Lord of Illusions. Oh, that's another movie that I watched that as a kid. Didn't freak me out. I actually just really liked it, and that still is a very solid film. Uh oh, Nick of Time. Oh, Species. There we go. Species. We got Mallrats, Virtuosity. A lot of Jade. Batman Forever. Showgirls. A lot of big movies came out from '95. So I don't from the there was a couple videos back where I distinctly heard my cat crying, but then when I actually listened to it on the in on the video, like I didn't really even notice it. So I don't know if you hear me kind of laughing. It's actually because I can hear my cat doing her little crying for attention thing. I'm not sure if it always picks up or not, but all right. So we're still running a little long. It's been about 20 minutes now. I'm going to continue doing this though. I'm going to continue getting through half the pack. We're getting there though. But we'll just keep refining our methods here. We're getting some repeaters. Not too bad though. Hmm. The plan is to stick with these vintage hobby boxes for a little bit, but I do plan on getting back into some a retro. I have a big retro box that I'm very excited to open up with you, but that's going to be in the next few videos. I do have a finite amount of these vintage boxes, and once I'm done with that, I'm going to see how I feel about continuing later on. But either way, I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna stick with the cards no matter what. It's just once I'm done with these boxes that I've acquired through the past couple months, it's gonna be, where do I want to take this? Because at the end of these boxes, I also hope to be doing other content. Like I said, with the other collections and stuff. So, we'll just play it by ear. But this has been fun. This has been very enjoyable. I'm just learning a lot. Just going through these, seeing what I have. This has been a good time. Around this time, I believe I was in what, fifth grade-ish or so. Um, I remember that's a great. I love that hat. The Detroit Tigers. I love that version of the logo. And for '96, we had I had mentioned how Titanic had come out, but I'm trying to remember if it was specifically '96 that I was in fifth grade at that time. I think so, probably. Um, that sounds about right. And at the time, I had a teacher who was super into Titanic, so he really hyped us all up. Not that that was, I don't even remember when exactly I saw that movie. That could have been something I saw in the theater, but at the same time, it's like that had nudity in it, right? So I don't know. Maybe my parents were just like ridiculous. I don't know. They just let me watch a lot of crazy stuff. But I do remember, yeah, fifth grade, we had this teacher who was just crazy about Titanic lore. He taught us all about it, when he wasn't teaching us like the regular curriculum stuff. I remember one point. So again, those when multiple movies come out about the same subject, there was actually a Titanic miniseries, and it had Tim Curry in it. And there was like this, there was kind of like a assault scene that he had with a woman, and basically, I just remember he was going on a rant about how he felt it was totally unnecessary because like, he was like, oh, that didn't happen, and it's like, well, how do you know? But I do remember that was also like the year where I started like becoming more than that's where you start just becoming a real person, and that was also like the first year I went to like the principal's office, like I was, like that type of stuff. But I wasn't like a trouble making. That was like the first and last time I went to the principal's office. I was actually a pretty good kid, a little weird, not a sports guy, but that's nice. It's a nice card. Part of what kind of eats this up is the fact that the cards are more than anything stuck together. you know, so it's kind of hard to just kind of like, you know, I kind of have to be careful with each card, and that probably eats up time too, because you do see guys ripping open cards and just, you know, boom, 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 but not with these though, because, you know. So it looks like we have about 3 packs left. Another little bit of 95 media that I was appreciative was what was, as far as music goes, I was a huge little Kiss fan, the band Kiss, and in '95, um, they did an MTV Unplugged, and I believe they shot it in August, but they premiered it on Halloween. Oops. Oh, October. Oof, that was a bad one. That's our first really, really bad one. But that's actually we already have that, right? That's we have that one already. So okay, not too bad. um, so 95, yeah, it was Halloween, October 31st, 1995, where Kiss did their Unplugged show. And what was great about that was in 94, and I'll talk about this when we do the 94 cards, they did a Unplugged tour where they went around doing kind of like a Super Kiss convention where they would play an Unplugged set, and they had all sorts of vendors, and then they also had like displays set up of their costumes. And as a kid, I was at the Roseland one, which, you know, RIP Roseland. That was a great venue. Saw a lot of bands there. But the first band I ever saw was Kiss, and this was like, you know, it was when they didn't have the makeup or anything. That was '94 though, so I'll keep that story for the next one. But so yeah, they played their Unplugged show in '95, and Halloween '95 was actually a banger of a Halloween. Um, my aunt had my aunt and uncle owned a nightclub, and they opened it up, or I think around '93, '94ish or so, and it took a few tries for them to really find their niche. And one of the gimmicks well, I don't know, it's a little harsh of a word, but one of the things they tried was making it a comedy club. And that's awesome. Again, when those were not ironic sunglasses, those were like the thing. That's sweet. And so Halloween of '95, they had a comedy show going on, and you know, I was done trick or treating. I was out and about, and my parents actually brought me over to the club to visit with my aunt and uncle, and to actually sit in and watch the comics. And I was in my costume and still and everything. I was some sort of like, I remember it was like a Grim Reaper, but like it was like a bony demon face with like acid. It was awesome. It was awesome. Again, interesting childhood. But yeah, that was probably one of the coolest things, was that, you know, I was technically, you know, it was a bar, right? I was kind of sitting in the corner. I was drinking a Coke. I wasn't, you know, nothing crazy like that. But, you know, yeah, like I remember like the comedians were making like dirty jokes, and I was like laughing at it. So yeah, you know, that's what I ultimately GPing. That's a good one. Ultimately, that's the type of stuff that I mean when, you know, I talk about how like these years were like those really super formative years for me. And 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 yeah, that's the type of stuff I was into when I wasn't into into sports so much. But the year before that, the Rangers won the Stanley Cup, and I remember that. I remember my father like cheering. I remember, ironically of all things, I actually was, well, this is more of a '94 story, right? But basically, I had Ranger trading cards that my father had gotten me, and I was kind of playing with them as if it was the players I remember when they watched. But I'll talk more about that for the '94 stuff. I still have a whole other video for 1995, right? I still have half this box And so far 35 minutes exactly right now. So okay, whatever, not too bad. We're definitely not going to run out of juice because the camera is fully, I made sure that the camera was fully, ooh, that's a nice one. Ryan Thompson was fully charged and everything, so we should be good. We should be good with that. Oof. Sounds satisfying, but it's scary because I don't want these cards to be wrecked. All right, last two boxes of this video. So yeah, that was a great Halloween. I remember because we were going out to visit my aunt and uncle at the nightclub. That meant I was gonna miss the premiere of Kiss, but we of Kiss, and also at the same time, it was also the premiere of like one of the funnier Halloween episodes of Beavis and Butthead. So, but my parents recorded that whole night of oh, this is bad. That whole night of MTV just so I could go and watch it later. And then the CD for that came out in '96, so that was one of the big CDs also of 1996 I was into. So it's all strung together. It's like one long narrative. The biggest irony of my of the nightclub that my aunt and uncle owned was that eventually they settled on it became a music venue, and they had all sorts of bands. A lot of original rock bands played there. The guy from El Nino used to come and drink and stuff, and so they had, it was a nice little venue that they had going. And at one point, I actually started in a band when I was in my early 20s, and to me, I felt so so poetic because I was like, all right, when we're ready to play out, okay, we automatically got a venue that we can start at, and then the idea that the first venue that I would play would be my aunt and uncle's, club after all these years, was awesome. And so we, spent a little time rehearsing our stuff. We were an original metal type band, and when we were finally ready to play out, I talked to my aunt, and she tells me, "Oh, sorry, we're actually have to close." So the very year that I actually started in a band, my my aunt and uncle had to close out their venue where they had bands. That was poetic in a kind of sad, bittersweet way, but that's how things go. All right, we're getting into the last of these now. Hey folks, if you've stuck with me throughout this video, I really appreciate it. This has been about 40 minutes. Oh well, okay. If you can hear, my cat really wants to get petted. Oh, another bad one. We ended on a bad one for there. Hopefully the next half will be a little better with that. But there we go. All right, folks. Thank you so much. Video 5, May 5th, 2025, 1995. Thank you so much. Once again, if you want to help support me a little bit more, I am an independent author. I have books on Amazon for sale. It's a whole series, the Greater Region series, Carl Gasso on Amazon. And with that, thank you so much. Have a great, happy Cinco de Mayo.